The students are requested to mute yourself if not required. All the students, it's a request. And at the end of the session, you can ask as many questions as you can. Okay, Sakhar, it's over to you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everybody. Welcoming all of you in today's webinar. It's a great pleasure for all of us to meet here in this virtual session. Today, we are having such a person as a speaker. I would love to introduce him in front of you. He's a result-oriented professional with nearly 10 years of experience in regulatory affairs, clinical trials, research and development. He has achieved his master's degree in pharmaceutical engineering from Odisha in 2008 and Bachelor of Pharmacy from West Bengal University of Technology in 2006. He had also qualified GATE Kharagpur in 2006 with a percentile of 92.25. Currently, he is working with Athnas Pharma UK Limited as a regulatory affairs manager. He has worked with few pharmaceutical giant companies like Alembic Pharmaceuticals, Bluefish Pharmaceuticals. In corporate regulatory affairs, also he has worked with regulatory service providers like ELC Group. He's a strong organizer, motivator with a successful track record in assisting CQA and manufacturing location during health agency inspection and technical audits by customers. Let me welcome Mr. Shoykot Das. So we are really privileged to have you amongst us in this webinar session. And now the floor is for yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shah, for your kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'll just share my screen with you. Just let me know if you can view it. Is this visible?
Yes, it is visible.
So good morning, everyone. This is a session for the Regulatory Affairs Insight and Pharmacovigilance. So I believe everyone must be knowing about what is regulatory affairs and pharmacovigilance. And those who doesn't even know about this stream, I'd like to make an apology. And those who know it, I'd also like to make them an apology for making it a repetitive discussion for you. Basically, in this pandemic scenario, the world has been in a standstill, but there has been a company which has been working even in this day zero pandemic scenario, and that is a pharmaceutical company. With the limited staff, they have been working day and night. We all know that China is a big bull in the pharmaceutical sector. They manufacture the API products and the drug product manufacturer. They are the biggest drug product manufacturer and drug substance manufacturer in the world. But in the upcoming days, as we all know that there has been an issue with China. So the booming country which is going to be coming into the field is India. And with this knowledge that we come to know from all these pundits, that this pharmaceutical stream is going to be shifted to India, being a third world country and cheap labor. There's going to be a huge scope for regulatory affairs and pharmacovigilance department. Moving through the slides, I'll be giving you a discussion about the regulatory affairs details. What is regulatory affairs? Importance of regulatory affairs, the regulatory affairs in the industry, its use in clinical trials, pharmacovigilance, and the way that this regulatory affairs professionals submit their submissions to the health authority to get the marketing approvals. We will also go through pharmacovigilance. Pharmacovigilance is a different sector than regulatory affairs, but there is a link of regulatory affairs with pharmacovigilance, which we will be seeing in the current slides. So regulatory affairs is the department which is the heart of the company. It is the heart of any pharmaceutical sector, be it a pharmaceutical, be it nutraceuticals, be it cosmetics, be it veterinary, any of the streams. Regulatory affairs plays a very, very crucial role. We all know that a drug which, when manufactured in the labs, in the laboratories, in the preclinical testing and the clinical testing, but a drug becomes a medicine when the product license is granted. And that is our main objective. The drug molecule, unless and until it becomes a medicine, it's of no use to the community. So regulatory affairs plays a major role, a very, very vital role in getting these product licenses from various health authorities, from US FDA, EU, Japan, Middle Eastern countries, TGA, globally. Why is regulatory affairs coming into play? There were many. I'll just take you to a history of regulatory affairs, because regulatory affairs in earlier times, there was no regulatory affairs in company. In 1935, there were many deaths for diethylene glycol. In 1941, there was almost around 300 plus people who died due to sulfathiazole tablets, which was contaminated with phenobarbital. 1962, this was the major event where regulatory affairs came into play, where thalidomide, when it was taken by pregnant women, the effect was devastating. It was seen to have a teratogenic effect in younger kids, in the babies. They had small limbs with nose flattened. But after 1962, 1963, this regulatory affairs department came into play, because earlier there were no such regulations where the drug to be analyzed, or it has to be reviewed by any agency. We all know that there are many RMPs, roadside RMPs, who provide medicines to these village people, which are not dose specific, but this leads to the death of many individuals. Community gets disturbed. That is the place where regulatory affairs comes into play. 1970s and 1980s, there were only around 2 or 3 persons working in regulatory affairs department in companies. But as of right now, in the present day scenario, this field is so much booming that companies, there are companies which I have worked on, they have almost around 300 to 400 regulatory personnel working in this department. So regulatory affairs is a very, very big profession. It is a noble profession. Why is regulatory affairs a techno-commercial department? Regulatory affairs deals with all the departments in the pharmaceutical company, be it from the basics, be it from the scratch, be it the drug product manufacturer, in the laboratories, the testing, preclinical testing, the clinical testing, be it the packaging, be it commercialization of the product, be it the finance. So regulatory affairs is a technical as well as technical. That means regulatory affairs deals with the quality team. Regulatory affairs deals with the R&D department. Regulatory affairs deals with the clinical team as of how much subject should be taken into for processing these clinical trials, or what should be the batch size. I mean, when the product is being synthesized in the laboratories, it has been in a very, very small quantity. But when it is shifted to the plant for large scale manufacture, we cannot just have a whole lot of batches for manufacturing. It has to be always 1/10 of the batch that is manufactured from the laboratory. I mean, the R&D sector, if the batch is around 1 tablet, it should be around, it should be within around
I think, hello, Mr. Das has been muted.
Yeah. So you got to unmute yourself.
yeah. So regulatory affairs is a techno-commercial department. It is a very, very vast field, and in this very, very small session, this cannot be discussed about the complete details of regulatory affairs and pharmacovigilance, but I'll try to gist most of the job profile responsibility of both these departments. What is the importance of regulatory affairs? When the product is being manufactured in the laboratories, when it is tested, it passes through clinical trials, preclinical trials, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and then a lot of money is being invested, euros, pounds. This amount of money is being invested, but there are instances when these products does not even see the light of the market. Why this happens? It's not necessary that all the products which are being manufactured where a company spends millions and tons of amounts of money has to be marketed. It can be rejected by the regulatory health agencies of different countries. Not necessary that a product, when we get an approval from US FDA, has to be marketed in Europe. There can be regulations that interfere. This depends on the accessor reviewing the document. So the products which are marketed, like I said over here, in the thalidomide. The thalidomide was marketed in Europe, but it was never marketed in US. They did ban this thalidomide in US, and that was the reason this disaster of teratogenicity in US was prevented, but we have seen a lot of death in Europe, in Australia. So this is where the regulatory affairs comes into play with the pharmacovigilance department. They take into account the three basic milestones. Those are safety, efficacy, and quality of the product. Now, if the safety of the product is not considered, if the quality of the product is not considered, then this disturbs the complete community. So in this case, in this way, we the regulatory affairs department takes into account about all the requirements of the various departments. They prepare various documents, various summaries from the documents that they receive from R&D sector, from the quality sector, from the clinical trials. They prepared the summary report with various types of graphs. All these are present in an English language, and then these are submitted to the health agencies. So what we see over here is the importance of regulatory affairs in the today's competitive environment. The reduction of the time taken to reach the market is very critical to the product and hence the company's success. For example, if a product is getting an approval from a regulatory health agency, from any country like Germany, from Netherlands, or from Italy, in Europe, but it takes time for the company to commercialize the product. But there is another company who markets the product and getting the approval. So even if it is a delay of 2 and 3 months, it causes millions of amount as a loss for the company. So this is where regulatory comes into play with the technical team, with the commercial team. So this is why I said it is a techno-commercial team. The supply chain guys, the finance guys, they are all dependent on the regulatory affairs department, because unless and until the regulatory affairs gives them the green signal, the product cannot be marketed into the particular country. It can never be commercialized. And if the product is not commercialized, the company will not get its benefit. And there will be no role of regulatory affairs in that case. The proper conduct of regulatory affairs activities is therefore considerable economic importance for the company. So that is why the company's growth, the company's economic growth is solely dependent on the regulatory affairs. It is a profit center for the company. Inadequate reporting of data may prevent to timely positive evaluation of the marketing application. So when the data is received from the various teams, like the quality team, like the R&D team, the regulatory affairs has to evaluate those details, because those are all raw data, and these raw data cannot be submitted to the health agency. So the regulatory guy evaluates each and every document. So they have to be technically sound in reviewing those documents. Things where they do not have a knowledge, they has to get themselves educated from those guys, from their teams, for preparing these applications. Because when this application is submitted to the health agency, the agency is going to give the queries to the regulatory guy, and the regulatory guy has to prepare the response, because unless and until a regulatory has the response, because any product is a baby of his or her baby of the regulatory guy. it is his responsibility to get the approval for the product. A new drug may have cost millions of euros and dollars, pounds to develop. And even 3 months delay, which I have said, even a 3-month delay may bring to the market has considerable financial considerations. So when there is a delay in the approval procedure, when you get the delay due to the regulatory queries that have been asked by the health agencies, and there is a delay in commercialization of the product, be it a month delay, be it a 2-month delay, the XYZ companies, other company gets to market the product and gets the benefit. Even worse, failures to fully report all the available data or release of the product bearing incorrect labeling may easily result in the need of product recall. Excuse me. So what is labeling? We all know, we are all pharma guys. We all know what is labeling. Inner carton, outer carton. The inner carton, that is the sticker that is nearest to the drug, and the outer carton, the packs, and these 2 or 3 packs or 10 packs when they are inserted into the shippers. These are all prepared by the regulatory guy. Each and every wording of this SPC, peel and label. SPC means summary of product characteristic. PIL, we all see the leaflet that is present into the bottles. Each and every wording has got a meaning. We never open, even my own family doesn't even open those leaflets, but it takes a huge amount of time to prepare those leaflets, and a single change in those leaflets, the leaflet which is approved by the health agency, and when it is commercialized, if there is any error in those leaflets, the product has to be recalled from the market, and that will bring a loss for the company. Either occurrence may lead to the loss of several units of sales, not to mention resulting in a reduction in confidence of the investor. That means the company, healthcare professionals, and patients. The Regulatory Affairs Department is very often the first point of contact between the health authorities and the company. The Regulatory Affairs is a bridge between the agency and the pharma companies. This bridge is maintained by the regulatory guys. So as I said, regulatory affairs is the heart of the company. The product that are manufactured in the company, the regulatory authorities reviewing the products, the queries that are raised by the regulatory authorities are being responded by these are the professionals regarding to the product, the quality, the safety of the product, and the company. What is the company related to the regulatory authorities? The company has to be audited. Even if the company manufactures the product, they cannot market the product. They cannot commercialize the product into the particular market unless and until you have the approval for those. Unless and until the site is audited by those regulatory agencies. Like if you want to market the product in US, it has to be audited by US FDA. We all know, we all get to hear that the plant is the site is US FDA audited, or it is EU audited, or it is TGA audited. TGA means Therapeutic Goods Administration. It's the AU, I mean the Australian regulatory body. The site has to be audited by the company. Now, this company documents is requested by the health authorities, because the health authorities, they are physically not going to come to the company when they review their product. They will be coming to the company in a tenure of 2 years, in a tenure of 3 years. There is a renewal procedure of this audits that depends on auditor to auditor. I mean company to company, that depends on agency to agency. Some agencies have a validity of 5 years, some has a validity of 3 years. It is the responsibility of the regulatory guy to look into those documents, to inform the company, to get the facility audited. Because if the facility is not audited and the product is submitted to the health authority, the product will immediately be rejected. So it is ultimately the regulatory affairs who is to take the blame for the company. It is always the regulatory affairs who is at the pinpoint for the company, for the regulatory authorities, for the soft flow companies, for the quality guys. The quality guys comes to the regulatory authority stating to update them the queries that we receive. We have to, the plant doesn't know, the manufacturing site, the drug product site, they do not know the queries that the healthcare, the regulatory authorities, regulatory affairs receives the queries. For example, if there is a query on the dissolution, or the guideline has changed, or the stability data has to be revised. So this or the regulatory guy, they keeps giving discussion, they give presentation to this company guys about the guidelines, the latest guidelines, how the product has to be manufactured, what are the guidelines that has to be taken into account for dissolution, for manufacturing, for the quality, for the clinical. Because this keeps on changing. Like you can have a, like for the clinical, you can have a pilot study of 120 subjects, you can have a pilot study of 20 subjects. Now, if a regulatory authority accepts a pilot study of 20 subjects, it is unnecessary to have a pilot study to be conducted for 120 subjects. That is a cost for the company. Now, the regulatory has to inform the clinical side that it is the minimum requirement is 20 subjects, but you can at least have 25 to 30 subjects till 120 subjects. But it is not a mandatory to have large amount of subjects to be taken into account for these trials. So this is how you can understand there is a lot of money that is being invested by the company. Regulatory affairs takes into account that there is a minimal loss for the company, because it is ultimately a profit center for the company. Unless and until a regulatory affairs gives a green signal, there is no way that a company will get a profit for this for the financial year. And ultimately, there if there is no profit for the financial year, or if there is an audit which is being failed, I mean, the time of the audit has passed and the product is under regulatory analysis, the product will be rejected. So it is the sole responsibility, it is a huge responsibility of regulatory to take into account of each and every minute details of a product, of any medicinal product that the company manufactures that is into the market. The regulatory affairs, as I have already said earlier, it is a bridging between the company and the regulatory authorities. They bridge the regulatory documents, the regulatory the crucial files which the healthcare professionals or the particular agencies require from the company. There can be a requirement where the samples are required to be produced to the regulatory body. But if the product is not in the market, how can a company provide the samples to a healthcare, to a regulatory body? So this is where a scientific justification, regulatory has to give a scientific justification to these accesses. Anyway, by hook or by crook, regulatory affairs have to have the approval for the company to get the product into the market, to get the product commercialized. Regulatory professionals are employed in industries, in the government regulatory authorities, in academics. There is a wide range of regulatory professionals where they play a major role. They play a role in the pharmaceutical industries. They play a role in the medical devices, in vitro diagnostic centers, biologics, nutraceutical products, cosmetics, even in the veterinaries, the veterinary sectors, the medicines that are given to these animals, like the chicken, the fishes. I mean, ultimately, it is the common people who are it is us who are going to consume those medicines that are given to these animals. So nowadays, regulatory is also playing a crucial role in the veterinary sector also. So it is the heart of this is a regulatory will. So regulatory, as you can see in this chart, regulatory affairs is the heart of the company, be it the R&D sector, be it the marketing, be it commercial, be it the CMC, that is the chemistry manufacturing control, that is the quality, be it the quality assurance, the non-clinical, the clinical, the compliance with the health authorities, be it any sector, be it the finance, be it any sector. It is the main point of contact between all these be it in all these sectors. Regulatory affairs plays a very crucial role in getting the company commercialized to the regulatory bodies. Regulatory affairs in clinical trials. Clinical trials, my first company was a clinical trial company. It was a BA research company, BA Research JISU Limited. And in the clinical trials, there are 4 units. That is quality control, quality assurance, project management, and the regulatory. When the subject is dosed with a medicinal product, when a subject is dosed, the dose of the dose which is going to be given to a particular subject, that has to be reviewed by the regulatory guide. How these trials are being performed, how these protocols are being prepared. Regulatory, there is a body which coordinates its clinical trials, that is called the ICH. This ICH community, this ICH body, International Community of ICH, International Community of Harmonization, ICH. So this ICH plays a very important role in the clinical trials, and when these clinical trials are performed, if there is any query from this ICH, regulatory has to respond to these queries. When we are submitting this complete dossier to these health authorities like the US FDA or MHRA, TGA, EMA. EMA is in Europe, Health Canada, or any other regulatory agencies. These protocols, these documents are being reviewed by the agencies, and when there is any query from the agency, it is ultimately the company pinpointing the regulatory affairs as of why there has been a query, why has there been a rejection. When a regulatory guy has reviewed the document, and when there is a rejection in the clinical trials, I mean, there is a lot of money that has been paid to the subjects. There is a lot of money which has been invested in the PKBS section, in the analysis of this pharmacokinetic section. That is the BAB, bioavailability and bioequivalence sector. So the amount that is invested in this BAB trials. So the company, it comes to the regulatory affairs department stating as of why these queries are being raised, and it is the sole responsibility of regulatory affairs to take into account all those queries, responding to these queries, and give a sufficient answer. I mean, ultimately, it is this part of the company who responds to the agencies. The regulatory affairs personnel develop strategies to overcome the delays, presents finding to the clinical trials, which I have already said. If there is any query that is raised by the health authorities, the findings, the queries, these are the findings which are raised by the health authorities of the clinical trials to the regulatory bodies to get a quick clearance. So unless and until there is a quick clearance from the regulatory agencies, the product cannot be submitted into the dossier unless and until these reports are being prepared, these medical reports. I mean, the module 5, I'll discuss with you what is module 5. But just as a information, just to let you know, module 5 is the clinical documents. The module 5 document which is being prepared, which is being submitted into the dossier, that has to be responded at the earliest, ASAP. So unless and until this approval is received, the dossier cannot be submitted to the health agency, because there is always a deadline of submission to the health agency from the company, and that solely comes from the commercial team, that comes from the finance team to the regulatory affairs, to the higher management. The regulatory affairs facilitates in the collection, analysis, communication about the risk and benefits of the health products to the regulatory agencies, medical and health systems, and public. Why is these documents being reviewed by the regulatory agencies? These documents are being reviewed by the health agencies. This is because of this, as I have said, the safety and efficacy. Why the safety and efficacy? Safety and efficacy ultimately leads to the benefit and risk of the product, benefit and risk for the community. When a product is approved, there can be a positive benefit and risk ratio. But as the time passes, it is not necessary that the benefit risk ratio has to be in a positive way. There can be complications in the patients, there can be complications in the community, and that is where the pharmacovigilance comes into play, taking into account the clinical trial reports, taking into account the statistics which these clinical trials prepared, taking into account the module 5 protocols, ICH guidelines. These are all correlated with the medicinal product. So each and every step of getting the product approved, maintaining the life cycle of the product, is to be taken into account by the regulatory affairs professional. It is not that getting the approval, getting the product submitted to the health authority, getting the approval and the job done, because there are other responsibilities, there are other queries, there can be a change in the site, there can be a change in the manufacturing process, there can be a change in the indications, there can be change in the posology, which we get from the pharmacovigilance department. The indications are changing. It has been, for example, there has been a drug in the market, we all know, minoxidil. So minoxidil was used initially, marketed as a hypertension drug, but taking into account the reports, the statistics, the data that pharmacovigilance department got, it later came into account that minoxidil to be used in hair plant transfer rather than as a antihypertensive drug, where the company gets much more benefit. So this is how a product gets converted. The indications of product gets shifted, taking into account the data from the market. So this is how the regulatory affairs comes into play. There are as I've already said, there are various agencies: US FDA, TGA, MHRA, EMA, Health Canada. So these are the addresses of each and every region I haven't listed about all the health agencies, because there are a lot of health agencies globally, but these are the major ones: the EU, the US, the Japan, Canada, Australia. If you just click on this link, I'll be sharing you this presentation. If you click on this link, if you click on this email contact, you can definitely send your query to this health agency, and they will be responding to you. Doesn't matter if you are working for any company. You can be an individual, you can be working as a freelancer, you can be working as a consultant. So you can get your queries resolved from these health agencies, because it is not necessary that all the documents, all the details have to be documented into the guidelines, into the preamble, into the directives. So there are details, the fees that has to be paid when we submit the applications to the health agencies. There is a fees which has to be paid to these health authorities. That depends on dosage to dosage, packaging to packaging. In some countries, that depends on the complete molecule. You do not have to pay the fees for each and every strength. You can just pay fees for a particular molecule. There are instances where you can pay a fees annually. There are agencies where you can pay a fee depending on how you are going to get your product approved. There is a simple procedure, there is a fast track procedure. So each and every step has got different amount of fees that has to be paid. Now these minute details are not documented anywhere. You get these details from in practice, knowledge that you require, that you acquire working in a company. You get these details from if it is documented into the company specific websites. There are websites for specific regions. You can get any detailed information about whatever submission that you want to make, whatever variation that you want to make, whatever changes that you want to make to your product. This is all documented into their portals. Each and every country, whether you go for Netherlands, Germany, any country, Europe, in a whole Europe, like if you want to submit an application in Europe, you can submit as a centralized procedure. You can submit one single application to all the 32 countries in Europe. So that is called as a centralized procedure. So there are various ways that you can get your product submitted. So all these minute details can be retrieved from these regulatory guides. You can directly get in touch with them. You can directly talk to them. But it is always requested to acknowledge them, because when we acknowledge our colleagues, we acknowledge them with their name. We acknowledge our, because in MNCs this is the culture. We acknowledge our MD, we acknowledge our director with their name. There is no sir. But when you talk to these agencies, you have to be very polite. You have to mention them as sir or a madam with a good note, and you can never mention to them, we expect to receive your response at the earliest. So these specific wordings has to be taken into account when you send an email to these guys. So be very polite in asking any kind of query to these agencies, and they will definitely respond to you. They have got their timeline of responding. Some health agencies response in 2 to 3 days. Some response in 14-day timeline. Some doesn't even respond. Like if you go for Brazil, they doesn't even respond. Now you have to keep on sending them email. I mean, you cannot mention them as a reminder. It's a polite request that you can give to them after 7 days time period, after a 5-day time period, that we are expecting a response. Could you kindly let us know how can we move forward? How can we make the submission. Please do not mention the name of the product. Please do not mention the time of the submission. But you can, please do not mention the name of the company that you are going to make the submission. But please provide all the remaining details of the submission that you are going to make, be it any kind of variation, whether it's going to be a type 1A variation, type 2 variation, or any kind of variation that you want to make to the health agencies. There has been instances where, like I said, regulatory affairs is a profit-making center for a company. Now, we always see how a company is profited. Now, there are several changes for a company. There are several changes for a product that we need to submit, and it has to be submitted as a type 1B variation. It can be submitted as a type 2 variation. Now, type 2 has got a lot of amount of fees. Now, type 1A is a simple variation type. Type 1B is a simple variation. But when we go for a type 2 variation, the fees is almost around 75,000 euros. I mean, 75,000 euros you invest in a product. The product is not even approved in a market, and you are investing already. You have already invested in a product so much. And if there is any kind of query, and if it is not being able to resolve, now all the money that you all the money that the company invests, all the money that you invest for your company, it all goes in vain. And who is to be blamed? The regulatory personnel has to be blamed for all this. So we can always check if those type 2 variations can be submitted as a type 1B variation. 2 or 3 variations can be grouped together as a single variation, so that we pay the minimum amount of fee, we pay the least amount of fee, and we get the approval of the product in a shortest timeline. Type 1A and type 1B, it takes a minimum time of 30 days, whereas theoretically, but practically that can go to something around 60 days or 90 days. But theoretically it is 30 days. But when we go for a type 2 variation, theoretically it is 180 days, but practically it can go something around 2 years. Now, when you are already invested so much amount of money and you are not getting an approval for a product till 2 years, now ultimately that is a loss for the company. So this is how we need to provide justification. We need to provide sufficient documents. We need to provide graphs. We need to provide suitable amount of data to the health agency, so that they are justified, they are satisfied with your answers, and you get your approvals in the least amount of time. Please do let me know if you are having any kind of queries, because this is a very short session, and I believe I'm going very fast. And if there is any query, please ping me in the middle of the session also, and I'll be happy to answer your queries. Pharmacovigilance. Pharmacovigilance is a different sector in a pharma company, but pharmacovigilance is also related to the regulatory affairs. How is pharmacovigilance related to the regulatory affairs? Pharmacovigilance, the job profile of pharmacovigilance is the collection of data, monitoring of the data, to research, to analyze the data they collect from the community, from the time period of 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, the data they collect from the patients, because this is a very live sector. This is a sector which is in direct touch with the HCP, I mean the healthcare professionals, with the patients, with the doctors, with the dentists, with phlebotomists. So this sector is the live sector of any pharma company. So they collect the data, they prepare the report, and they submit this report to these health agencies. It's not only collection of data. You have to report this data to these health agencies. As of anything is severe, I mean, a person has taken a drug and then he is having seizures, he is being hospitalized. Now, this is a serious adverse event, and this has to be reported to the health agency within 24 hours of the report that the pharmacovigilance get from the particular patient or the healthcare professional or the HCP. They prepare the report that they prepare. It is called the PSUR, Periodic Safety Update Report. I provided a link over here. You can go to this link to check about this PSUR. So what is a PSUR? This PSUR, Periodic Safety Update Report, it's clearly visible from the wordings. Periodic safety, the data that is collected periodically, the safety data that is collected, it is updated and a report is prepared. That is why the name is Periodic Safety Update Report. It is being prepared by this pharmacovigilance department, and then it is being submitted. After the product gets approval, it is submitted to the health agency. After the approval, in a time gap of 6 months for the next 2 years, and then after 2 years it will be annually, and then the following after 2 years it will be 3 years. The data has to be submitted to the health agency. So it will be 6 months for the first 2 years. Following 2 years, it will be 1 year for the next 4 years. So first year, second year, third year, fourth year. So there, first year, second year, there will be 4 reports. So after the second year to fourth year, there will be 2 reports. So there will be total of 4 plus 2, 6 reports. After the fourth year, the report is going to be submitted 3 years. After 3 years, so each and every time gap of 3 years, you need to submit those reports periodically, and it has to be submitted. A pharmacovigilance guy cannot miss this PSUR report to be submitted, because when you get the approval, from the health agency, they have their own, the health agencies have their own database. There is a medical guy, there is a medical sector in those countries where they review these reports, and these reports are to be submitted within 6 months of the data lock point. Data lock point is the point when you get the approval, that is called as a data lock point. The day when the marketing approval is received for a very particular product, that is called as the data lock point. Now, within the 6 months of the data lock point, this PSUR reports has to be submitted. What is European birth date? European birth date and international birth date. There are 2 types of birth date of each and every product. So European birth date is the date when the regulatory agencies provides the approval for a particular product. When the marketing approval is received for a XYZ product, that is called as the European birth date in the European market. European birth date refers to any of the country, whether it is all the 32 countries or it is being received from the EMA, but specifically in the Europe, not to other countries. So that is why I have specifically mentioned European birth date. But what is international birth date? It is not necessary that the product has to be marketed in Europe. Company can market the product in other countries. Company can market the product. Company can commercialize the product in the Middle Eastern countries, in TGA, in Brazil, in Japan, Canada, US. So this is called the international birth date. So international birth date is the date where you get the approval for the particular product in those countries globally, apart from the European birth date. What is the relation? What is the relation between the European birth date and international birth date? the international birth rate has to be submitted. The data for the international birth rate has to be submitted within 6 months of the European birth rate, which is also known as the data lock point. So to make this European birth rate and the international birth rate harmonized, when this product is going to be renewed, so there will be the work responsibility, the job responsibility of pharmacovigilance guys gets multiplied, but that is still the renewal of the product. When the product is going to be renewed, both the international birth rate and the European birth rate will be one single birth date, that is called a data lock point, and from that date the data will be submitted individually. There will be that the periodic safety update report will not be submitted for particular EBD or IBD. So this is how to get the EBD and IBD harmonized. So this is where the periodic safety update report plays a major role. So periodic safety update report, why are we talking about this periodic safety update report? Why am I mentioning to you about this periodic safety update report in the regulatory affairs topic? Suppose we have a product A for a company Roche, Pharma Roche Limited, Basil Roche. So when the product is divested, for example, the same product is being purchased by JIS. I mean, if the product is purchased by the company JIS, there are various variations that you need to file. It will be the marketing authorization transfer from Pharma Roche, because the product is already marketed in the name of Roche. But now that JIS has already got the product, they have already purchased the product, they have already divested the product in their name, it has to be announced globally to all the markets where the product is commercialized individually. So you need to file a variation for that, and that variation is called as marketing authorization transfer. What is marketing authorization transfer? The name change of marketing authorization holder. The marketing authorization holder in the first case is Roche. Now it has become JIS. So the marketing authorization transfer is shifted from Roche to JIS. So this is where the marketing authorization transfer variation has to be submitted initially. But following this marketing authorization transfer, the company, the JIS, can change the name of the product by various variations. You can change the batch release, but the product has to be released. It is not necessary that the batch release sites of Roche to be used by JIS, because if JIS uses the manufacturing sites, the batch release sites of Roche, JIS has to pay an amount, a hefty amount to Roche, so they can get this sites changed. So if you change any kind of document in your dossier which is approved by the health authority during the marketing authorization approval, which was submitted by Roche initially, it has to be submitted by a variation. But when we change this marketing authorization transfer, the main part, that is the PV update, the pharmacovigilance update. The pharmacovigilance department is specific for company to company. Roche has got their own pharmacovigilance department. JIS will be having their own pharmacovigilance department. JIS has to submit this pharmacovigilance report, this PSUR that I have already mentioned to you in the earlier slide. This PSUR report has to be submitted for the JIS company, stating that there has been a change in manufacture, and moving forward, all the queries that will be received for this particular product will be taken care by JIS or any other. It is not necessary that JIS has to undergo GIS has to have a PV sector. GIS can have a sister concern. GIS can have, they can have separate companies who can work for GIS. But you have to mention the name of the company in your PSCR report who will be working for GIS. So that is how the Regulatory Affairs Department has to coordinate with this pharmacovigilance guys to prepare the report at the earliest, so that immediately when this marketing authorization gets approval, that depends on country to country, that depends on agency to agency, how quickly, how efficiently a regulatory affairs responds to these queries. If there can be a case in Europe, I have faced, like for a decentralized procedure, the decentralized procedure takes in Europe to get an approval, that is a marketing authorization. It takes around 210 days. I have got the approval in 120 days. That can be done. How you respond to the health authorities, how you justify the health authorities, how quickly you get your product approved. So the earlier you get your product approved, the earlier the regulatory guy has to push the PV team to prepare this PV report, this PSO report, and then this report has to be submitted by the regulatory affairs guy as a type 1A variation to the health agency. So this is how regulatory affairs and pharmacovigilance is correlated. This is all taking into account the safety, efficacy, and the quality of the product, because these are the basics, these are the bricks which makes the product commercialized. This makes the product not to be recalled from a particular country, not to be recalled from a particular market. So this is how a regulatory affairs and a PVT is related. How are these regulatory guys making the submission to these health authorities? So there are various formats of regulatory authorities. A regulatory affairs department receive lump of documents from the quality team. They receive the documents from the clinical team. They receive documents from the preclinical team. They report. They receive the laboratory reports from the R&D sector. All these details are documented in a particular format, which is called as the CTD format. That is the common technical document. And what is ECTD? ECTD is electronic common technical document. The file folder structure is the common technical document. When we prepare this CTD structure has got 5 modules. When I was discussing with you, I did mention with you the module 5. The protocols, the reports of these clinical details are included in this module 5. So there are 5 modules: module 1, module 2, 3, 4, and 5. So module 1 contains the administrative details of the company. It contains the GMP, the manufacturing license, the SPCs, the labeling text, CVs, and the cover letter, the application form, the details about the PV details. I mean, the summary of the clinical trials, which we also have to submit in module 1. So it all contains these administrative details. What is module 2? Module 2 is the gist of module 3, 4, and 5. That is why it is called as quality overall summary. It contains the details about, it contains the summary about the non-clinical, manufacturing, and the clinical. Now, what are the summaries? This is not an normal English summary. These details, these summaries includes graphs. These summaries includes various pie charts, which are very carefully prepared in a very short page, something around 5 to 10 pages, and then it is included into module 2. But you will be imagined to No, the number of pages in module 3, 4, and 5, they contain something around 5,000 to 10,000 pages. Now, the details of these 5,000 to 10,000 pages are listed in this 5 to 6 pages that is included in module 2. Module 3, it contains the quality section. Module 4, it contains the non-clinical, and the module 5 is the clinical. If you go to this particular link, you can see what are the details about the particular documents that are being included into this CTD. I won't be going into the particular document, the drug product section, drug substance section that is included in module 3, because that is going to take a whole lot of time, something around 3 to 4 hours, and that is not possible in this very short session. But still, I'll compile this in a short triangle. So the first part is the module 1. Following the module 1, that comes the module 2. Then comes the quality overall summary, which is the module 2. It also contains the non-clinical, clinical overview, non-clinical summary, and the clinical overview and the clinical summary. Then comes the module 3, that is the quality data. Module 4, that is the non-clinical data, and the module 5, that is the clinical data. So this is how a CTD dossier is prepared, and all these CTD details, the information, each and every document that is prepared into this file folder structure is being synchronized into, is being transported, is being imported into various softwares by which we create this ECDD. Currently in market, there is various companies who are preparing softwares for preparation of these ECTDs. There is KnowledgeNet, there is PharmaReady. PharmaReady prepares the ECTD. There is DocuBridge from Lawrence. So these are various ECTD software. These are various ECTD platforms which are globally accepted by all the health agencies, because these sites are also, they have to be inspected by various agencies. Now, when we go to make a submission in Europe, this KnowledgeNet has to be approved in Europe, because this software, when we prepare this ECDD in KnowledgeNet, now if this software, if this site, if this company, these are separate companies through which we take lease from this company to prepare this ECTDs dossiers, because these softwares are very costly. Companies, big companies do purchase these ECDD softwares. These softwares comes in the price of something around 25 to 30 lakhs rupees, and each and every user, they has to pay something around 4 to 5 lakh for one particular user. So you can understand. So how costly are these softwares? So by the use of these softwares, these dossiers are being prepared. Complete ECTD is being prepared. All these modules are transported into this particular file folder structure, and then they are submitted to the health agency, which is globally accepted. Now, the various health agencies which do accept this ECTDs are USA, that is the US FDA, MHRA in UK, TGA in Australia, the CDSCO in India, Health Canada in Canada, EMA in Europe, Japan. Also, that companies also started making submissions in ECDD in Middle Eastern countries. Till 2017, it was only Bahrain and Oman. They were the first to accept the ECTD. But Nowadays, almost all the GCC countries, go for Kuwait, Jordan, Iraq, Sudan, Bahrain, Oman, all the Gulf countries, they do accept this ECTD softwares and these validators, and these validators are also accepted because once you prepare your ECTD, you cannot make the submission immediately. You have to get your dossier validated. Now, when you prepare your ECTD, there will be a lot of queries that will be raised in these validators. Now, you have to resolve all these queries that is raised in this validation errors. Once you complete all these validation errors, you get a green signal in the validation report. You can only submit this ECTD to this regulatory bodies, because if you submit your ECTD to these health agencies, it is for sure that you are going to receive an invalidation query. And once you receive an invalidation query, this will ultimately delay your approval procedure. And how is this going to delay your approval procedure? Because the procedure is going to start in a delayed fashion. You will be given a timetable after your ECTD is validated. So the earliest you get your ECTD validated, the earliest you get your product approved in the particular country, the earliest you get your product approved in the particular country, the earliest you get your product commercialized, and that is how the company is profited. So these are all correlated. Each and every section, each and every area is very much correlated to the profit of the company. Pharmacovigilance. Pharmacovigilance is this sector where I've already mentioned to you in the earlier slide of regulatory affairs. They collect the data, they review the data, they analyze this data, and then they report the data to the health agencies. There has been instances when they receive the serious adverse events or the adverse events. These adverse events, when this pharmacovigilance guys receive it, they have to be responded in 14 working days. And when it is a serious adverse event, it has to be reported to the health agencies, within 24 hours. But to be very specific, these dates are taken into account. You cannot miss these dates, specifically for these serious adverse events. If these dates are missed, the company is going to be penalized. It can happen that the product can be recalled. Why the product will be recalled from the market? Because that takes into account the safety, that takes into account the efficacy, that takes into account the quality of the product. What is the section of this pharmacovigilance? The pharmacovigilance, what is basically pharmacovigilance? Pharmaco means medicine, and vigilance, that is vigilant to keep a watch on the community. It is taking into account the health benefit risk ratio, safety of the product, responding to these health agencies. The pharmacovigilance also are in touch with the healthcare professionals. They are in touch with the dentist. They are in touch with the doctors, the phlebotomists. Now, what does a pharmacovigilance department do? And how does a pharmacovigilance department work? There is a there are four departments in a pharmacovigilance sector. That is the regulatory affairs department, the call recording department, the quality control department, and the quality assurance department, which contains the doctors. The call reporting, I mean, this is a 24-hour live sector where we all know that there is a yellow card. If you ever see a leaflet, there will be a toll-free number that is mentioned over there. If you call the toll-free number, you will be immediately directed to the pharmacovigilance department of these pharma companies. This pharmacovigilance department, it is sometimes part of the company. Sometimes it is a third party which is taken into care by various IT companies like Wipro, like TCS. Novartis works with CTS. TCS works with AstraZeneca. Wipro works for Pfizer. So there are various, because there is a software which this pharmacovigilance department uses in reporting these queries, in reporting this adverse event that they report, that they get, that this pharmacovigilance department gets from these live patients. This has to be reported as a message to these various health agencies. So the main objective, what is the basic main objective of this pharmacovigilance? It is to improve the patient safety care, to improve the public health, to improve the understanding, to educate, clinical training, also the risk benefit ratio, and the effectiveness of the product in the market. How can the product be much more effective? How can this product be much more in a profitable scenario for the company, like this minoxidil? What are the major aims of pharmacovigilance? They help to detect the safety problem, the risk factor, whether it is quantitative or whether it is qualitative, and also preventing the patients from unnecessarily serious adverse events. Like if you open the leaflet, there will be mentioned over there the side effects. So the patient already knows, the doctors already knows what is the side effect of the product. So before taking the product, the patient is aware of the side effect of the product that they are taking. Scope of pharmacovigilance, it is very much in demand, taking into account that the pharma companies are growing along with the regulatory affairs. As these pharma companies are growing, as these MNCs are growing, there will be products which will be being marketed, which will be being manufactured from India. And then if the product is manufactured from India, more and more pharmacovigilance guys will be recruited from the Indian companies to help maintain this life cycle of this product. And as I always say that India being a third world country and cheap labor, so these MNCs do refer to companies which are being based in India with good knowledge of particular product. Adverse events and serious adverse events, I've already mentioned to you in the earlier slides. Serious adverse events like the deaths, like if it is life-threatening, if a patient requires hospitalization, if there is any abnormality in a patient, if there is any birth defect taking a particular product. So these are the 5 serious adverse events. And if there is any of these 5 events which are reported, these reports are to be submitted to the health agencies within 24 hours, and action will be taken against this product. There will be queries raised by these health agencies. The product will be analyzed once again about the further marketing of the product into the particular country or globally, because when there is a serious adverse event in a particular product, this is being reported globally. It's not only reported to one particular country. It's the message is not only submitted to there. These reports are these adverse events are reported as a message. These messages are not only reported to the Europe or US, but it will be reported to all the countries where the product is commercialized. What should be reported to a pharmacovigilance department? Any ideas? Any ideas? That means the adverse drug reactions. If we see that there is any ideas relating to the generic products, if we see there is any ideas relating to the traditional medicines, if there is any drug-drug interaction or any drug-food interaction, if there is any drug withdrawals or any medication errors, these are all to be reported to the healthcare professionals of the regulatory agencies. These are the various links. You can go to these links, and you can check for the details about this pharmacovigilance PRAC, that is Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee. PRAC, it is in Europe, and there are particular countries which are each and every country have got their member and alternative member, and the name of the member is also mentioned over there. You can country specific name of the vice chair or the main chair is also mentioned, and you can check as of whom to coordinate, whom to check about the product, because it may happen that the head of the department, head of the practice in the particular country is on a leave. In that scenario, there will be the second alternative that you need to be in touch. So this is how a PV department works, and this is all about the pharmacovigilance and regulatory affairs. So with this, I thank you for all these informations that I have given to you. I know that there are students from various fields, various streams. We have got pharmacy students, we have got microbiology students, but this is my point of view, which I have acquired working into the regulatory affairs department. This is not something that I am specifically taking into account. I'm notifying to you or I am prioritizing the regulatory affairs than any other department in a company. But these are the points. This is how a regulatory affairs department work. This is how a pharmacovigilance department work, and this is how we work. I mean, I have gathered in the time span of 15 years working in the different pharma companies, different service providers, different clinical companies. Just let me know if you are having any kind of queries, because this has been a very short and very fast session. If there is any kind of query, if there is any kind of details that you require from my end, I'm there to help you at any point of time. My contact details and my email ID is already given to you. You can feel free to get in touch with me via LinkedIn, via email, or you can call me anytime. I thank you, Obidipto. I thank you, Maji sir. I thank you for letting me give this very short presentation. With this, I hand over to you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And
Yes, Obidip.
yeah, if there is also sorry, Obi. If there is any question and answers, I'm there to answer any of your queries right now. Thank you
Hello.
very much.
Thank you once again for giving us your valuable time. And actually, hello. I know
Yes,
how busy,
you're audible.
yeah, how busy you are. So, students, have you any question? You can directly now. You can unmute and ask to sir.
Before that, Obidiputta, I have a
Yes.
question for Mr.
Hmm.
Das.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So Mr. Das, my question is that as one of the part of JS University, as a faculty of JS University, I would like to know that as in the field of regulatory affairs, what should be the process for a institute or for a educational firm to make their student eligible for this field, particular field, regulatory affairs? Because the reason I'm asking this question, because in the last semester, in the 8th semester, they're having a couple of choice for elective subject. There is a subject regulatory affairs. Okay, so some people, most of the people are not very interested. Some of them are very, very interested. So we used to get confused that what exactly we should be doing from our end to make them prepare for this particular field. If you can guide for us, if you can give a guidance for us and also to the students for that, from this level, how they can prepare themselves for the industry.
As I have already said to you that in this pandemic scenario, most of the pharma companies are going to be shifted, are going to make their base, are going to make the hub in India. So there is going to be a very, very, very vast field of opportunity in regulatory affairs and pharmacovigilance. There are institutes which provide regulatory affairs in undergraduate or in a postgraduate. Even there are countries like Australia. There are countries where Health Canada or US, where the post-graduation or research in the R&D, research in regulatory affairs, is also there. So you know that regulatory affairs, yes, this is a very, very good, and of course with great powers comes great responsibilities, and you have to be accountable to the management. You have to be accountable to the company. You have to be accountable to the complete team, because you have to make the quality guys. You have to give presentations. You have to give discussions about the latest updated guidelines. So you have to be very much proactive. You have to be smart, fluent in English, and if these are the skills that you think that you are having, you have to have leadership abilities. You have to be a team player to be in a regulatory affairs,
Right.
because unless and until you are a team player, you cannot combine all these departments. You have to combine these departments together. You have to get the responses, because it is not necessary that the quality team or the R&D team is sitting for a regulatory guy to give answer to them, and then the regulatory has to give an answer to the healthcare professionals or the health agencies. It is a responsibility to arrange the meetings. It is the responsibility of the regulatory guy to go to them to understand the process, how they are manufacturing it, what are the defects, how it is to be manufactured, what are the loopholes, so that the loopholes are not asked by the health authorities, to skip all those things and to get the approvals in a very urgent manner. If you think you can do all these things, you are proactive. Definitely, regulatory affairs is a very, very good stream for you.
Thank you, Mr. Das. There are a couple of questions which we can see in the chat box. That is, a student is asking that is B.Pharm is enough for pharmacovigilance or any other courses have to be done? And how much economical this career is?
Absolutely.
Like how much they can go up?
Absolutely. Being a B.Pharm, you can join a. First of all, I'd like to say scope of pharmacovigilance in companies, in an industry. How to get into a pharmacovigilance department. You need to look into the various IT departments. This TCS, Wipro, CTS companies. There is a sector called life cycle management or healthcare department, or various teams have their various separate names. You need to look into that department, and it is in that department that pharmacovigilance comes into play. It is in that area that a B.Pharm guy can place their resume to get recruited. But it is always benefited if you want to progress, if you want to go high, if you want to change from company to company. Frankly speaking to you, no one wants to sit on a simple stone. Everyone wants to climb the ladders of success. If you want to climb the ladders of success, it is always necessary to have a master's. It is always required to have a PG in either of your stream, whichever stream that you are studying. It is not required. You have to study pharmacovigilance. You have to study regulatory affairs to be in a regulatory affairs. A microbiologist can work in a regulatory affairs, but taking into account, he has to study more about a product. He has to have a thorough knowledge of a product. What is a medicine? How does it act? A microbiology student has to have a knowledge. A pharmacy guy knows about all those things, but a microbiologist has to know about all those details. They have to study about the guidelines. And if you can overcome all these things, all these things, it is very easy to get in pharmacovigilance and regulatory affairs.
Yes, Saikat, I have a question. Hello. Yeah. Actually, there is a couple of companies who are coming into our institution for for campus purposes, like Wipro and all that. So if a student enter into the Wipro or any pharmacovigilance sector, will he get preferences for enter into the for the drug regulatory affairs? Will experience means like from being a B pharmacy student or being a UG student, if he or she work for pharmacovigilance for a couple of years or like that, so will he get preferences for enter into the into drug regulatory affairs, or they have to meet their UG PG? What do you suggest?
Of course, to be in a regulatory affairs department, you have to have a post graduation.
Okay, fine.
That is the specific requirement in a regulatory affairs. But It is all dependent on how you crack your interview. But frankly speaking to you, I have seen many resumes, and to be very frank to you, it is you cannot compare an M.Pharm guy or a PG guy with a UG guy. So when you are even if that comes with a package, you cannot compare a PG with an UG guy, because it is company. Sometimes it depends on company norms and regulations. Like the company that I am working on, it requires specifically he or she has to be an M.Pharm, and this is the minimum requirement. But there are companies that I have worked on, like Alembic. I've worked on with Canapes, where they do not require a pharma guy to be working as a regulatory professional. But yes, there has to be a PG.
Okay. Thank you.
But yes, you can of course shift from pharmacovigilance to regulatory affairs. But in my experience, if you spend something around 5 years in pharmacovigilance with the PG, you will never be coming to regulatory affairs.
Okay.
Because that is the department which everyone likes to avoid. Because I said to you, with great powers come great responsibilities. Your life is at stake. You miss the timeline. Company has a stick with you. Company has a rod with them. As of we are very much welcome not to come to the company from the next month, because it is a cost to the company. So this is a very, very straightforward scenario, and nothing to be worried about. Because if you know that you are capable of doing, if you're capable of taking challenges, you can definitely come to this department. And life is always about taking challenges. Unless and until you take challenges, you cannot move forward.
Right. So
Thank you, Mr. Das. And I think with the reference of Obidiptoda and Mr. Das, that I think we also can expect that, because our institute has opened the M.Pharma as well in two streams, M.Pharma in pharmaceutics and pharmacology, that if your company can also come to our campus for taking some of our students, or giving the opportunity to some of our students who are having the M.Pharma degree at the end of the 2022, I think that would be really great for us.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think some of them will definitely be interested in joining the regulatory affairs industry.
My heartfelt congratulations to all of you.
And we really need a guidance for our students, Mr. Das, for moving ahead with regulatory affairs from you.
I'm always available over phone. My phone number is already there.
Absolutely.
You can call me anytime. You can email me. I will also give you my office mail ID if somehow I miss my Gmail details. You can also ping me in LinkedIn.
Right. Absolutely.
Any kind of queries that you have. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Das, for sharing your precious time with us, and for letting us know, and for giving us those scopes that we were missing out till date, that how we can move ahead with this industry, and how we can guide our students to move ahead in this industry. So thank you so very much. And we have, give me a moment, we have a very small token of appreciation from our department for you, with the permission of our HOD, Maji sir, and Obidiptoda, I would like to present that in the screen.
sure.
Sakkar, sure, you can present it. And thank you, Saikar,
Thank you, sir.
for your presence We require your physical presence at JISU University.
Thank you very much, sir. My I do confirm, but taking into account, I will be there if this pandemic scenario
Right.
is over, and if I am in Coach Bihar, definitely I will be visiting JIS.
Okay.
And thank you very much for this appreciation, sir.
Okay, stay happy and stay healthy.
You too. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Das. So with this, we are just concluding the session. And thank you to all of the participants to be with us till the time. Thank you so much for your attention. And we'll be meeting again in next session of our webinar. Thank you, Mr. Das. Thank you,
Thank you.
Maji sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Obidip Tuda.
Have a nice
Yeah,
day.
share the feedback.
You have a nice day too.